Poise and Power. Part 6. Be virtuous in thought and action. The gain of power through virtue is truly remarkable. Never think of sex relations. To do so will turn energy towards functions that cannot be used now, and all such energy is lost. Energy should be turned only into those organs, functions, and faculties which can make constructive use of energy now. Therefore, no thought should be given to functions which must of necessity remain inactive. There may come a time when these functions can be used legitimately and properly, and when that time comes, energy may be turned into those functions, but not before. If you are unmarried, never think of sex at any time. Never permit even a mental tendency toward such desires. Every time you think of sex, a certain amount of sex desire will be expressed, and the expression of such desires mean that creative energy will flow towards the sex functions. But what becomes of this energy? The law is that all energy that is caused to accumulate in a function that is not used is lost. It is therefore evident that an enormous amount of energy is lost through the lack of virtuous thought. In the average person, there is a subconscious tendency to give up a certain amount of energy every day to the sex function. Through this tendency, energy is constantly flowing into the sex function, to be utterly wasted and lost. We are not making extravagant assertions when we declare that a very large number of people lose nearly 1/2 of their energies in this way. We are also keeping strictly within the bounds of fact when we declare that the world would have 10 times as many great minds as now if real virtue was generally lived. By real virtue, we mean the prevention of all loss of energy through the sex function. To bring about this complete prevention, 3 things are necessary. All illegitimate sex relations, physical or mental, must be discontinued entirely. No thought of sex should be permitted whatever, except during actual, legitimate sex relations. The subconscious tendency to cause a constant flow of creative energy towards the sex functions must be overcome. The first essential is not at all difficult to comply with. This is demonstrated by the fact that nearly all unmarried women and a great many unmarried men do comply with it already. The second essential may be more difficult because it is easier to control action than thought. However, this second essential simply must be complied with because every thought of sex deprives the system of energy. The third essential can be complied with through transmutation only, which will be considered in another chapter. Subconscious tendencies can be changed or reversed only through subconscious action, and the required subconscious action in this case is transmutation. The subconscious tendency under consideration is hereditary to a greater or lesser extent in everybody, but is intensified by every unvirtuous thought that the individual may create. Being hereditary and quite deep-seated in the subconscious life, persistent effort will be required to remove it, but the recompense for such effort will be very large. In the average case, it will mean that physical strength and mental capacity will be nearly doubled. If you are married, reserve all thought of sex for the hour of true and legitimate functioning. At all other times, refuse absolutely to think of sex. Keep mind in a pure, virtuous attitude under all circumstances, and counteract all impure suggestions with the thought of spotless virtue. To be conscious of virtue is to save a great deal of power, because through such consciousness, a tendency to retain all the creative energies in the system is established. When we feel the real life of virtue, the mere thought of virtue will add power to the system. Such thought will also neutralize the temporary effect of every unvirtuous suggestion that may be met in the outer world. When you meet people, never permit yourself to think of whether they are males or females. Meet people, or rather, as minds with unbounded possibilities. Whether they express themselves as masculine personalities or as feminine personalities should not concern you. Your object is to associate with the superior side of all personalities. that you may enter into a deeper sympathy and a higher understanding of everything that has quality and worth. This leads us to another phase of human relationship, the meeting of mind with mind, and it is a study of the first importance in the attainment of poise. When we meet other minds, a certain degree of mental activity takes place. Since all action employs power, the nature of such mental activity will determine whether this power is to be lost or no. There are only two ways of meeting other minds. The one is to meet them in a state of sympathetic harmony, the other is to meet them in a state of cold resistance. True, there are many grades and vibrations of these two, but they are all modifications of one of the two. When we resist, we lose energy. All fighting attitudes are wasteful. Even righteous indignation, as it is called, destroys as much vital power as ordinary anger. The same is true of all antagonistic attitudes, arguments, and disputes. Never argue with anyone. Nothing is ever gained through arguments or disputes. Where mind is arrayed against mind, but much is lost, because all such attitudes of mind scatter forces. Be in harmony with all things and all persons at all times. Relate yourself harmoniously to all circumstances and conditions, and be at peace with all creatures, all elements, and all forces. When you are out of harmony, you are out of poise. When antagonistic forces are felt, they should never be permitted to follow their inclinations. The tendencies should be turned, and the energies directed into channels of construction. When on the verge of anger, think of something you love, and your power will be saved. When on the verge of fear or anxiety, have faith. When people present their inferior side, make a special effort to see the superior side. When things seem to go wrong, enter into mental contact with the ideal, which is always right. In brief, be in harmony, regardless of what may transpire. When trying occasions are met, the perfect poise will be tested. If we come out victorious, poise will be more firmly established than it ever was before. It is therefore to our advantage to meet such occasions, if they are met in the right way, and the right way is to hold attention upon deep thought and feeling. So long as thought is in deep feeling, we can remain in poise, providing we are conscious of poise, no matter how trying or adverse the circumstances may be. However, the very moment we permit thought to run towards the surface, poise will be lost. This state of deep consciousness or feeling is one of the characteristics of poise. Therefore, so long as attention is held in deep thought, mind will be in the attitude of poise. This attitude of deep, serene thinking is indispensable to harmony while we are in contact with other minds, because everything that comes from another mind has the tendency to modify the attitude of our minds. But it is only the surface states of mind that can be modified at first by what comes from without. Therefore, by remaining in the attitude of deep, serene thought, poise will be retained, and nothing can change our way of thinking or acting unless we give conscious permission. Neither can anything disturb our equilibrium at any time. End of Poise and Power, Part 6.